Hello.
Hello, Adrian.
Hello.
How are you?
Um, I'm good. I'm excited. I'm
I'm
very
so,
excited to be part of this
I'm
because
so excited to connect with you. I'm going to give you a minute now to connect with us and tell us your background on this. But I just wanted to tell people a little bit of our background. And as you know, we have an intent for the 6 weeks, and we're going to play and just see what comes up. You also flow so beautifully, source guided, soul guided. So we actually don't know what's going to happen in every session, which is so beautiful. But me and you connected via like a link on Facebook, and we had a shared experience. And it's almost like the intent of whatever that was for us to actually connect further, because there was this lingering, yes, there's something there. There's like a gold nugget, and I love those experiences. And I would, I would urge anyone, if you feel that, like just explore that connection a little bit more. So just that is our background, how we connected. And I'm going to now hand over to you. Please tell us more. What do you do? And what is your path been? And how has your journey been in the last couple of months?
I think before I say anything more, I don't think that the opportunity that brought us together was a golden nugget. I also thought that in the beginning, but I think it's more of a diamond nugget. It's quite beautiful.
Yeah.
How we just got together at the same time, at the right place, at the right time, that sort of thing, because I've actually been wanting to do something to sort of help the broader consciousness of humanity. I just didn't know how. So I opened myself to opportunities. And I think because of, I have been born highly intuitive. So I've sort of like was born with that sort of thing. And so in many ways, a lot of things were easier for me, but in also in many ways, a lot of things were more challenging for me as a direct result of that. And so as I went through my life, through all my patterning, overcoming a lot of the things in my life, I would say like officially my journey sort of started in 2013 when I started to study Reiki. It was a very low point in my life. I felt like there's nothing sort of left to do. Like I was convinced that God makes mistakes because I'm born and I'm a mistake. So I was convinced that God makes mistakes. Nobody could convince me otherwise. And then, but obviously life invites you to beautiful things, and went into crystal healing and working with the angelic realm and working with earth energies. I do a couple of other things. I do NLP, life coaching. I've been doing tarot for probably about 20 years now. And tarot is interesting because tarot has got very little to do with the cards. I always like to say that to people. It's more about, it's about life, and it's about your life, and it's about the law of attraction and manifestation and the universe and the opportunities that we as humans have on this planet. So I think predominantly I sort of work more with tarot, which I also sort of line up with life coaching. And then I'm also a regression hypnosis practitioner, which is really how the two of us met through
Yeah.
that link. And I think anything that starts from regression hypnosis is magical, because we work for the life, which is beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. I can see the passion in that. And I've heard a lot of amazing things about your sessions. I've also had it was always on my list to go and explore that a little bit more. So we'll see where that leads. And I know you do training as well.
I don't train so much in hypnosis specifically. But I do a lot of coaching in other things: Reiki, crystal healing, angel healing, unlocking your mind, opening your mind, developing your own psychic ability, how to sort of like align with your own life plan, your own soul plan, to get that balance inside. Because when we get that balance inside of us, everything just sort of works, because I think the thing is that sometimes happens, and it sort of really took off when The Secret came out, which, first of all, I think The Secret was amazing. It was this big sort of eye-opener. It was one of those really powerful sort of shifts that happen in the world, which, interestingly enough, COVID is one of those things as well. We sort of look at things from one angle and can maybe think this is good and this is bad, but it can all really contribute, towards a lot of good. But for me, the way that I always look at it is that there's already a perfect plan for your life. And I think that is why I'm so passionate about sort of like regression hypnosis, and also to help you to unlock your own mind, and to help you to have better communication with your own mind, with your own cells, how to program your own neurons. Because I think what happens sometimes is it's very good to look at energy and to look at all those sort of things, but we sometimes forget that at the end of the day, you are a human being having a human experience on planet Earth. And the more we understand sort of like how we as a human being operate, and how your body works and how your brain works, and cellular memory, like the same as sort of like muscle memory, the more we get that, the more control we actually have over our life, and the more power we have to first of all recognize opportunities that come about, and then secondly to have what it takes to actually be able to benefit from those opportunities that come around. So there's many ways in life that you can really empower yourself to really be able to be ready. So when the opportunities come about, that you're fully capable of, first of all, recognizing them, and secondly, also being able to utilize them, you know, to your benefit, and the things in life that are important to you.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like for me, that was the basis of my journey as well, is figure out what is your personal puzzle. What makes you you in your unique way, and then do that every single day. And you know, it's that getting to know yourself inside and out. So a couple of years ago, I shifted my mind from not just seeing healing as healing, but healing as, oh, okay, I'm going to learn more about myself, and more, that it's so vast, and there's a million ways of actually getting to that point, as long as you honor the whole package. You know, I love that you said the human experience, because sometimes we can really fly off there and, you know, get stuck there a little bit. But it's only when you really walk it, you know, you went through something deep, you went through like a raw lesson, now walk it. The only way out of it is through.
Yes.
So walk the wisdom. And once you do that, it's something that nobody can take away from you. It's a beautiful mastery of, hey, we did it, and it's between you, and it builds more self-love, faith, and trust in you. It's so empowering.
Yes.
So,
you know, that is really why I would actually say that I'm very happy, and in many ways I feel very honored that I'm able to speak about, well, my focus for this is self-sabotage specifically. Because the thing about self-sabotage, it's a very misunderstood sort of thing, you know. It's not that thing where you wake up in the morning and you say, today's wonderful weather, 28 degrees, perfect, let me go sabotage myself. And it doesn't really work like that. Your mind has a way of justifying things and making it logical, and it can even appear that you're coming from light, and so you want to really sort of get a deeper understanding of what those patterns are that are operational within your subconscious. What are the ideas that were repeated so many times that they became beliefs and they became part of your personality, and what really uniquely forms who you are. And in many ways, it forms a part of shadow work. But I think it's really important that we get to understand those deeper operational patterns within ourselves, because when we get what they are, they're not really able to run our lives so much anymore. What I find is also really incredible when we look at our sort of like our dark patterns within ourselves that we're not aware of, because we're usually not aware of it, is that even though you find the dark and you work at the dark and you understand the steps that you need to take, by default, you also find a lot of light, because the lower beliefs within ourselves that fuels the self-sabotage, which is those, you know, repetitive patterns that we get. We do the same thing over and over, the bad relationships, not having enough money, being the person who becomes a victim at the office, all of those type of things. It's when you can have the willingness to see what is it inside of me that brings that about. Just the understanding of what it is means that it's no longer subconscious. It's no longer something that you don't know what it is. And once you understand exactly what the fuel is behind the sort of like repeated manifestations, once you understand what it is that fuels it, you also have the ability to really choose and to say, but I no longer want that. I no longer want that experience in my life. So you really give yourself options for your life going forward, and you can experience more of how beautiful your life can become. And so I'm very excited that I get to contribute in something like this. So thank you.
I'm so excited. Yeah, we had a short conversation about that a couple of weeks ago, and you like really blew my mind in just short little sentences of like, oh my word, yes, oh my word, I never thought of it that way. I love those moments. So, okay, now that we're in the stream of that, how do you start with something? How would you guide us through something like that?
So what I'll do is over the next couple of weeks, we will for now we'll just sort of start with kind of like what sort of self-sabotage is, because in a sense that in itself is quite a broad conversation as well. And then, if you happen to be looking at this, then you can sort of start maybe looking at yourself and start having some of those light bulb moments of like, that is why that is happening, that is why this is happening for me in my life. And the idea is to really start off and to just sort of look at certain patterns in your own life without trying to make yourself right or wrong. This is not a space of making yourself right or wrong. It's more a space of like recognition, really. So we're first going to look at that, and then we'll just look at a little bit of a deeper sort of like definition of self-sabotage itself, breaking those bad patterns, making friends with your mind, making friends with the darker side of yourself. Because I think a lot of times we just try to get away from it, which doesn't always work. Then we look at some, once you broke those, some positive reinforcement, forming new thought patterns, foundationing those new thought patterns. And then we really start at looking those things at your foundation, how you can expand it in a healthy way so that your life can sort of like, unfold and be enhanced in a healthy way. And to really sort of set yourself up for more positive mind patterns and beliefs in your own subconscious, so that you are able to sort of start forming a better experience of life for yourself. So that is sort of like what I'm looking at and how I look at doing it for you.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And what I like about that is like it's, we're going to completely break the cycles, the patterns, because it's such a beautiful length of time, and you're going to rebuild as well. So there's more than enough tools in these video sessions to actually help anyone. So if they feel like joining in, sit at home with your notebook and follow the conversation as we unravel self-sabotage. And yes, the only thing with this is observe it. Observe it. That's all.
I also think when you look at something like this and you really would like to change your life and to improve your life and to just make it better, to just, and whether you want to feel lots better or just a little bit better, that's perfectly fine. But what I would usually recommend that if you really get into it, it's usually a good idea to maybe look at the video, give yourself a day or two, look at a video again, because our mind will only perceive what we are ready to perceive. And you may watch a whole video and you say, oh, that's quite impressive, And then you look at the same video 2 or 3 days later, and it's almost like you're watching it for the first time, because you'll be like, oh my goodness, I didn't even pick that up. Because I think the one thing to, if I really sort of get into it right away, the one thing about self-sabotage, it operates optimally from your subconscious patterns. So these are the things that you're not consciously aware of. You don't know that you've got these patterns. You often don't see the sort of the link in how sequentially certain things happens. I'm doing this, or I stop doing this, I allow this, I don't allow that. And that is how the whole pattern come about. We don't usually see it like that. Other people around us may see it like that. They may try to point it out to us, and we just don't get it. We don't get it because your mind sort of really blinds you to it. And it happens for everybody. It's not a select few that have that. It really happens for everyone. That's just how the brain operates.
Very interesting. That's very interesting. I've been reading up about the subconscious in the last month. And it's so interesting that it's now tying into this. I was looking for something in a practical sense to now apply and see, okay, how can I do the shifts? Yippee!
I'll give you
I
lots of
tried it. I
those.
love it.
I'll give you lots of those. Not today, but or in this video, but I'll give you lots of those.
Okay, so where do you want to start? I'm not going to hand over
Okay.
to you. You can take us on the journey.
All right. So first of all, the thing with self-sabotage to understand is that it's sort of like shows itself in many ways, but when you look at sort of like the I almost say like the tricks that it's got in its bag, it doesn't really have that many tricks. It's the same thing and it shows itself in different ways. So the thing that I think that we want to come from, first of all, is that all of us have got patterning that doesn't serve us positively. And the thing that I like to point out with your patterning, even though it literally determines your experience of life, a lot of the patterning that we have, it's either learned behavior or it's inherited behavior or inherent behavior. Because from the time that a child is conceived till about 6.5, 7 years old, you're basically like a sponge. And so everybody that's around you, whatever those influences are, those thoughts, those beliefs, those practices, we sort of like just, in a sense, kind of like just take those things on and kind of form our personality from all these different bits of information that we are being presented from the world. And usually not only, but more dominantly or more predominantly from the people that play those parental, guardian, older sibling sort of roles in our lives. They're very much in close proximity with us. But then also the other thing is that a lot of our patterning is very much within our DNA. You know, so you come from a family and they say that's sort of like how the Smiths do it. And so in the same way that in my parents, that their DNA brought about for me to look a certain way, to have dark eyes and those sort of things, we carry a lot of that patterning with us through our pathology basically as well. So you kind of arrived very programmed, and then you just kind of get programmed on top of that. And so when we sort of look at things like a lot of times people say it's good to play Mozart music for a child, for example, while you're in the womb or when you're young. And it's because that music itself operates on a certain sort of frequency, basically. And that frequency matches the heartbeat of your mother while you're in the womb. So for you, that resonates safety and security. And a lot of the bigger sort of artists that do that, a lot of the successful artists that do that, I'm not going to give any names, but a lot of those ones that make it really, really big and everybody sort of knows you and people say, go like, wow, you know, celebrity. A lot of them will use those tones within their music. And even though you don't consciously hear it, you don't hear it sort of like boop, 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 consciously in the music, it's in a much lower frequency. Because the thing is also our senses pick up a lot more than we are actually aware of them picking up. And so you may have the experience, for example, where you might say, I don't really like someone very much, but you just sort of met them. You maybe live in like an apartment complex or something like that. And it could be that those people may have had something bad to say about you, or maybe what they sort of, or how they sort of operate in their home and life doesn't sort of like correlate with how you'd like to live. And even though you're not consciously aware of the fact that you're hearing that, you will be subconsciously aware of the fact that you hear that. And that can really go both ways. Because if they sort of somehow feed the flame, the sort of like the bad flame inside of you, or the flame that doesn't serve you positively, in that same token, you then just happen to, I don't know, bump into each other in the garden or whatever, and you become these famous friends. But in a sense, it is still the same pattern being fed either way, really. So it's important to understand we're not normally aware of what we are doing when it comes to sabotaging our own life specifically. But one of the best ways, I would say, as an individual, to get to sort of like the core of what your patterning may be, to sort of start finding out what that might be, is to look at the things that are repeating themselves in your life. And I think in many ways, it might be good to first look at the things that are repeating themselves in your life, the things that you like. So what are the positive things that keep on happening? People just happen to give me stuff, or I just happen to get this, or happen to get that. And those are good things. And I like to start things on a positive note, and also on something that really gives you an understanding from a more, let's call it a higher vibe sort of thing, you know, something that just makes you feel better. And because the things that make you sabotage yourself and the things that make you create good things for yourself effectively come from the same source. So you can just as well understand the good parts about it first before you go to the not so good parts, you know. Encourage yourself before you discourage yourself.
Exactly. I
Grow
like
from
balance it out.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so let's just see for you. Okay, sorry. So this, so let's just sit with that for a little while first. So what you really have is that your mind basically operates on a sense of familiarity. And I would say the biggest job of your mind is basically to maintain your own safety. And the way that your mind maintains your safety is by sort of sticking with what it knows. It's almost like that better the devil you sort of know type of thing.
Yeah.
So your mind is going to try to keep you in line with what it believes to be true for you. And the way that we get for what is sort of like true for you is from their childhood patterning, those inherent patterns, and then also what we basically surround ourselves with. But all those little details together form some sort of basis of what is the truth and the definition for who you are, you know? It's like baking a cake. You put all these different things together, you beat it all up, you put it in the oven, you bake it, it becomes a cake. So in many ways, all our different patterns, they come together and they somehow form an idea of who we technically are. What are your foundational beliefs about who you are? And once those foundational beliefs have been set, from that, basically your subconscious will feed about 10%, probably less than 10%, but about 10% of everything that you perceive through your senses and what your body tells you and so forth, to your conscious experience of life. And so in that sense, based on whatever we believe about ourselves, whatever's true for you, that determines your experience of life. And the brain doesn't really sort of go between what is good and what is bad, because everything is just really possibility. Good and bad are human terms, which, by the way, we try change all the time. So it's not like we're sort of stuck to a pattern. But so when you, if let's just imagine you come from a family, I will use mine as an example. So I've got quite a broad family, but from my father's side of the family, what I came to understand is that my sort of great-great-grandfather, they kind of like came from a slave ship, and the ship sort of went on the rocks. And so they kind of came into this new space, and, you know, here we were, the Nelsons. But what I came to understand from that is that I come from a family of survivors. I come from a lineage where you can sort of throw them into a space where they probably don't even understand the language. They don't know the people, they don't know the customs. I'm not sure where they come from. The last trace that I have is that they came from St. Helena, but usually slaves weren't necessarily kept on St. Helena. They were usually, it was more like a thoroughfare type of thing. Yeah. So whatever the story might be, it's not really all that important to me. But the simple thing is that if I could come from a lineage that can survive through all of that, it means that somehow that patterning is already inside of me, which means whatever life throws to me, within my pathology, I already have that ability to overcome very challenging things. So that is a good thing. But then also in my pathology, you know, there might be a lot of anger, there might be a lot of animosity and hatred and, you know, despising certain sort of things, or I can maybe, you know, this is not a real example. Well, the slave thing is real, but I'm just sort of making things up and adding them as I go along. But I can maybe kind of easily come from a way where I maybe see a shopkeeper not being nice to, say, maybe one of the staff members. And I get so sort of like worked up about it. And I feel that I have to defend that because I'm a person who stands up for people, in a way that begins to sound a little bit like me. But we may not understand that that may have a lot longer sort of pattern where it comes from. And in that same token, it is quite easy to sometimes start creating scarcity for yourself in your life, because you come from that pattern where things are just being taken from you, people are against you, and then that can sort of begin to spiral out into other things, into your relationships and your finances and your health and your sort of emotional state in life, your mental state, how you approach life. And I'm not really speaking kind of like really about mental health specifically, but just your mental approach to the world and how easily you may forgive and those sort of things can sometimes have a lot longer lineage. And I think this is one of the main reasons why I'm so into regression hypnosis, because we normally call it past life regression. We're not going to get into that conversation, but when you sort of do something like past life regression, I can, for example, come in and say, I've got a problem with, let's say, finances. Finances was something that I had a problem with, that I was very able to make money, lots of money, but I was never able to hold on to it. And when I look back at my lineage, I can see why I would have that patterning within me. And then so when you sometimes go back into a past life, you may find yourself going back, and then maybe I find myself being a 45-year-old female slave, for example. And they can't understand why that would happen, but that is sort of like the core initiator of your pattern. And so we kind of look at those things. And in some following videos, I'm gonna give you some guidance in how you can make that connection with yourself, because with regression hypnosis, which is great, it's amazing, but it's a little bit overrated, or misunderstood, basically. A lot of the things we can do for ourselves, if you know how to do that. And I think that is a passion that both of us share, because this is literally about teaching people how to do things for themselves, that you don't just have to come to us to do it for you, which is incredible, because why wouldn't you want to help the world become a better place?
Exactly.
Why not?
Why
so we have a lot of those patterns in our lineage. And even the most amazing thing that happens is that as you begin to get this deeper understanding of yourself, and almost like how deep the rabbit hole in a way almost goes for you and for your specific experience in life and why that happens. What is really great is that, as we let go of a lot of this emotional baggage that we're holding on to, that, by the way, you're not aware of the fact that you're holding on to it, like this invisible backpack that is so heavy. And as we start to let it go, we start to make space for really wonderful things to come into our lives. And you literally start to look younger. You start to feel younger. Your mind starts to operate differently. Because the thing about the subconscious pattern is that even though you're not aware of the fact that it's there, it takes a lot of energy to maintain it. It takes a lot of energy to suppress it, so you're not aware of it. So a lot of times in life, you will feel that I feel so tired, I feel so demotivated, I feel so drained. And then we don't understand why we have that. And a lot of times it's because of the emotional patterning that we have. And when you let that go, your life really gets better. It's actually quite amazing.
So amazing that you mentioned that, because I had an experience today, and now it all makes sense. Like I had to have the awareness of it. So there's a couple of things that unfolded today, but just like small little things, nothing major. But every
Seemingly
time,
small.
sorry?
Seemingly small.
Seemingly small, yes. But it was like, hello. It's that, I'm trying to get your attention. And I think it was purposely guided for this, because I need to have the awareness now. So 4 little things happened, seemingly small. But every time, like more of my energy was just drained. And eventually, just before we started recording, I was so exhausted. And I was like, but I don't understand where. Like, where did this? And now that you mentioned it, and the, unconscious self-sabotage, there's a theme in all 4. And I can trace it back. Yes, I completely see it. Once you see it, that's the magic. Once you see it, it's like, whoa, okay, that was easy. Because for a moment there, when you started talking about lineages and I think this is where people get overwhelmed. We feel like, okay, now we have to go there. And you can do it all at once, but you're going to go deep diving and you're going to get stuck there for like 3-4 months. Né? We both teach soul guided. If you're ready to release that next thing, it will come up. All you have to be is just be aware. Be consciously aware of what plays out. And then when you're ready, go there and clear the next thing. Otherwise, it does feel overwhelming. And if that is your only focus is healing, the joy is not going to be there. There's no balance in being human as well. No.
And it's so important to really get that, because I think what we sometimes do, you know, and this happens with a lot of people sort of like around like the 30th, the 31st of December, the 1st of January sort of like starts to dwindle towards the 3rd, you know. You're so excited, I'm going to change my life, I'm going to do all of this, and so forth and so forth and so forth. But what sometimes also happens is that you can really overwhelm your mind. And, you know, say, for example, you get to like the 4th of January and you feel completely exhausted. Your energy is just kaplunk, non-existent. And what sometimes happens is that it's your brain that tries to rewire you back to who you are. Because the important thing to remember once again is that your mind is a creature of habit. And if you want to go about changing your life and changing your patterns and improving your life, you want to know the mind. You want to understand how the mind works, because the more you know about it, the better you're able to use it to your benefit. And the thing to remember is that your brain can be trained the way that you can train a puppy, a person who actually knows how to treat the puppy. But the thing is that in order for you to do that, you need to also understand it. And the thing about the brain, the big thing about the brain to understand the human consciousness, energy, you can call it whatever you want to call it, because words are just labels in any case. But the thing is that the brain, the mind doesn't like big changes. It basically fights big changes. And the one thing that you never want to do is to try and fight your mind or to try and fool your mind, because you're going to lose. And remember that your mind, your subconscious mind, it's about 90, for many people, it's about 98% of your complete mind, and your conscious is a smaller part. And where the conscious part of your mind is the experience part, the subconscious part is sort of almost like the factory part. So you can almost think of it like the manufacturing part that eventually makes the mouse that you find on the shelf, you know.
Yeah.
When you look at the mouse, you don't really look at everything, you just see the end result, and the consciousness is a lot like that. So the thing to remember about your mind is that your mind can be sneaky, and your subconscious, which is sort of more like the real you, it knows who you are, it understands your tricks. And sometimes on a conscious sense, we think that we're very clever and we're very smart and you can sort of fool the mind, but not really, because the mind will take you in a direction of making you believe that you are winning when in actual fact that you are not. Because the pattern will just take on a different form. And we don't always realize that. And so as you mentioned, you had the 4 little things happening today. Your mind is almost like a child that wants to play sometimes. They will just say, yeah, and then you don't really pay too much attention to that. And then they go, yeah, yeah. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to ignore them, you know? And then they maybe throw something at you, or they come and touch your leg, or they bump something against you. And so the mind does that in many ways. It almost sort of like does a little bit of a pull and take, like almost like when you pull ropes type of things. It kind of says, okay, how far can I take this? And then so it does that little bit of a yeah, and you don't do anything. So like, okay, they're not doing anything. Let's try a double yeah. So like, yeah. Still nothing. Okay, let's do a triple yeah. You know, and so and but that is how we can sometimes get ourselves into things, and we don't realize how we got ourselves there. Because
I'm so happy I'm talking to you tonight. Like I almost got myself into something. Again, it was exactly that. Like tick tick, hello. Very cool.
And the thing is that the mind will start with something. This is what I always say to people, that when self-sabotage begins to step up, it doesn't come with a cramp in your foot, for example. It is more sort of like a flower bouquet that is delivered to your door with a beautiful card, and you open the card and the card starts playing music, and it's your favorite flowers, or maybe you don't like cut flowers, you like a plant, so it gives you like a beautiful plant, gives you your favorite treats with it, and the weather's just perfect. That is really how it comes about. And that is how we can find ourselves in situations that we don't like, and we don't actually know how we got there, because it didn't just start up and say, oh well, let's sabotage yourself a little bit quickly there, let's mess up your life. It doesn't go like that. And also the mind has got a way of logically presenting things to you. So when you analyze it, even you'll analyze it in a very positive way. Funny the way that we got together, we sort of kind of got together through something like that as well, where people don't always realize what they do, and because a lot of times our outer actions comes from a deeper action. We don't always connect those dots until we actually do. And so the thing to also remember is that your mind will throw out a little bit of something here and a little bit of something. It's almost like putting a water fountain in your garden and switching it on. And you're starting to see if you're getting birds. And then you maybe try a bit of fruit and see if you maybe get some more birds. Okay, maybe they don't like this fruit, let's try that fruit, sort of thing. And so this is what the mind does. And the thing to remember is that 95, even more than 95 of communication happens on a subconscious level. So you may be two people that are walking into a store. So here's this person and here's this person, and this person's got their patterning and this person's got their patterning. And so maybe this person comes from belief that nothing, if we can use like a man and woman sort of example. So let's make this the woman, if we shall. So this lady comes in and she's got her own patterning, maybe from her childhood or whatever, that, this is what women are supposed to do, and that is not really all that positive. I'm a victim. Things don't work out for me. And this is not what you're thinking. You go into the shop to get a bag of corn. That's your idea. You've got no other ideas. And then this dude over here comes and he's just coming to the shop to get a bag of, say, maybe peas. And so this mind is saying, like, I'm a person who don't believe in myself. I always get in these bad situations and so forth due to whatever patterning it is that I have. And yeah, this guy comes about and his energy says, no problem, I can help you with that. You need somebody to be bad to you? No problem, I can do that. And neither of them really think like that. So you meet each other, you're so happy to meet each other, you get a whole thing together, and people's like, now let's not get each other wrong. Obviously, you get those beautiful positive connections as well. I'm just giving you an example of how the mind can actually use something really good, sort of like for its own sort of purposes. And so people's like, how did you meet? I'm like, no, we were just in the same store, and we just met each other, and we just got talking, and it was amazing, and it just flowed, and it was like we always knew each other. And patterns goes like, yay, we got a match, And then a year down the line, when the problems start, then we easily get into a space of, I didn't even know how we got here. And the truth about the matter is, you don't know how you got there. You really don't. And that is when we start blaming the other people, which in a sense, they are 100% to blame because they help you to maintain the pattern that you have, but you are also 100% to blame because it's sort of like them matching you, yeah. Until we obviously start to see that within ourselves. And that is how you can be in a job, in a relationship, in a friendship, where it's clearly not good for you, but you find logical ways to stay there, or depending on how deep your patterning goes. And normally this is the case with very dark sort of patterning, where everybody else might see how toxic a situation or connection might be for you, and you literally don't see it. And when people say to you, how don't you, like, it's almost like you don't see it, and you're 100% correct, they don't see it, because it's part of your core belief of who you are. Until we have to take that step, that is probably one of the most challenging steps, which is where you sort of have to turn that mirror on yourself and say, well, maybe it is me. And I think when we do that, sometimes we have a tendency to sometimes make ourselves wrong. My life is so bad, things are not working out for me. How am I wrong? How am I the problem? And the funny thing about that is that you can really look at that pattern. How am I the problem? How is this my fault? How do I keep on messing up my life? And if you really listen to it, it's actually the same pattern that is that you believe yourself to be deeper explorative into what's holding you back, but you're technically still making yourself wrong. And so in that sense, we can sometimes believe that we're doing a good thing when in fact not that much. So it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. And I mean, you do wonderful work with that sort of thing. And sometimes we just need that other person to bounce off, because the thing to understand about a human being, specifically about the human mind, no matter how enlightened you are or whatever all these other wonderful things is that you are, how present you are, in the blueprint wiring of being human, by default, by the nature of the very nature of who you are, humans are biased. And our mind is always geared towards protecting the self and maintaining the self. So, for example, I'm a tarot reader, and I would never really read cards for myself, because those cards, I am going to see in those cards what I want to see in them. And yeah, that's just the mind. It's fascinating.
Please, I love how you explain it. Like I could see by just hearing the examples and the stories. That's why I was laughing so much. I was like, oh my word, yeah, we all done that. And you're like, yes, yes. So it's exciting for this to be the basis, because I think now more of us are, if you decide to enjoy this journey with us and fully unravel that and actually step into the mastery of it, with all the tools and the guidance that will be offered, your stuff is going to come up, because we now open that door, and all we have to do is just be conscious. Like, oh, like what happened today. I didn't really put everything together until I sat down with you, and I was like, oh, it's all you. It's because I made this commitment to actually start this journey. So my soul already started pushing up to the surface, the first thing that's ready to go. So it's actually such a beautiful journey if we move away from the labeling. Oh, this feels bad. Oh, this is not, just move away from it. It's just an experience. You can choose to move through it in whichever way you decide. We choose to go more empowering. And because this is 2022, we're going to align it with joy. We want to have fun while we do it. We've done the serious deep shadow work. We've gone there. All of us have. So now we get the choice of, okay, now let's understand it. Let's understand ourselves fully. And thank you for bringing your wisdom and your niche in that aspect. It's always fascinated me, the mind and the subconscious. And I'm very excited, not just with your wisdom, but to collapse all those patterns and deep-seated programs, that is just ready to go. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there something else like a last little bit you want to share with us?
I think a couple of things in closing very quickly is, the one thing is, when we start working with our mind, when we start taking this journey, it can be very challenging initially. I'll provide you with a lot of tools that make it a lot easier for you. The wonderful thing is also that it tends to get so much easier, and it gets easier quicker. Your life gets easier because your mind opens in different ways. And I am not going to try and, I'm not going to try and teach you how to get rid of your self-sabotage or rid of your patterns or anything like that. Because a lot of times we try to get rid of things. What I want to help you is to really start to almost build a beautiful relationship with all the possibilities that you have within yourself. And when you sort of make friends with your mind, I always say it's almost like making friends with a stray cat. You know, it's not exactly a dog. You can't just open the door, the thing's going to be inside the next time it's living there. It's a little bit of a give and take and a little bit of a give and take. I want you to know, and I want to put this out here already, there will be some changes in your life. Chances are there might be some people who leave your life. So their chance is definitely there. And even though that might sound very scary that people will leave our lives, when we begin to understand the pattern between ourselves and other people and the energy exchange that we have with them, with our subconscious communication and stuff like that, we begin to understand how to let go of certain situations, connections, people in a healthy way. And even though that might be a little bit of a challenging part, what happens is that when we get to see the toxicity sometimes in a connection, we get to understand how it benefits both parties to move away. Or what also happens many, many times is that by realizing that within yourself, you are actually able to take a connection that you have with someone to a brilliant new level, that it actually gets stronger and it gets more beautiful. So yes, there might be some people that leave your lives, but it doesn't have to be a negative thing for either parties. Nobody needs to confront each other openly and any of those sort of things. Because when you change on the inside, your life on the outside, it basically automatically changes, because remember, the conscious part mirrors the inside part. And so that's why we work with the inside part first, so that the outside can start looking all nice and sparkly.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because that I've had that on my journey too. Sometimes we have this big goal, we know, okay, I need to get there and I need to move through this and that, but then we know, like, if you're going to take that step, it means a lot. Not everyone is going to come with, like, you have to let this go, this is not serving you, and then it's almost like the self-sabotage thing kicks in and you go, okay, no, I'll rather procrastinate and just wait. I can do it.
A lot of the patterns that we have are, you know, when we sometimes get to see almost what is fueling a pattern. And I don't mean to scare anybody, because this is a journey of enlightenment that helps you and everybody in your life as well. But a lot of times we get to see how close bonds that we form, that we perceive to be positive bonds in our lives, are actually not that positive. You know, maybe you like hanging out with a specific person, but when you get together, you talk a lot about, say, maybe other people. And when you begin to understand maybe within yourself that the way you focus on other people so much, which is a reason why a lot of people basically gossip, because it's a sense of escapism. I don't have to look at my problems. We're going to put the flashlight on you. So we're going to talk about you, and we're going to make your story as gross and horrible and disgusting as possible, because the more people focus on you, the less they need to focus on me. And again, those are not things that we always do consciously. If you speak to most people who are compulsive gossipers, complainers, those sort of things, if you point that out to them, they might actually take a lot of offense, and they might actually be really, really hurt, because they don't actually realize what they are doing. And I think maybe something to end up with is that something to look within ourselves, or be willing to look within ourselves, is that we may have things within us that are not that positive either, that may really be hurting and offending other people, and we're actually not aware of it. And the more you get to see what those things are, it benefits you and it benefits the whole world. Because when you change on the inside, you sort of show up differently on the outside, which means you contribute to different outcomes in this world.
That's amazing. Yeah, I would say for my intent would then be like, focus on you for the next 6 weeks. Really go in there and say, okay, no matter what I see, you know, I'm safe. We're walking this as a group together. We have so many beautiful guidance systems and modalities stepping forward. It's like, just go there, you know, see the truth. It's your gift. It's the gift of choice that we have, where we can change it all completely. And yes, it's going to be scary because it's something new. It's just a conditioned patterning, like you said. But if you go there once, You know, even if your knees shake and everything wobbles and your throat starts scratching, so what? Just keep going. And then even that becomes easy, slow and gentle. I'm very excited about this. Nerve-sighted, but excited, more excited.
I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The same mind, body, energy, whatever that you use to create a negative pattern, you use the exact same thing to create a positive pattern. And a lot of times it might seem like it's going to be such a difficult journey. But in many ways, it really isn't, because you're taking away those emotions. You just begin to feel better because you're not holding on to things. You're not holding on to beliefs that are not serving you well. So in many ways, your life gets better, and it gets better quickly, you know? So yes, it's not always a pleasant journey. There will be some challenges and stuff like that. But the thing is that when you do the work, you get to benefit as a direct result of doing the work. When you don't do the work, you continue to suffer as a direct result of not doing the work. And whatever pattern is maintained within you, that pattern expands. So you can either do the difficult parts and your life can get better, or you can refuse to do it and your life can get worse. Those are literally your choices, because either you run life or life runs you. Those are your options, you know? And when you sort of have a gray area, life's running you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually said, like, I like those moments. Like that's it. That's how it works. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I'm so looking forward to this journey with you. Your energy is just so beautiful, and there's clarity, which I love it. Clarity and a lot of action. I know everyone is just going to enjoy this so much, and we all are going to expand and grow so beautifully into those versions that we've been wanting and wishing for years. So I'm looking forward to getting all the testimonials and the beautiful emails as we celebrate with everyone and with ourselves.
Can I throw it one?
Yeah.
Here's the wonderful thing. The more you get to understand your non-serving darker side, and that is the powerful thing about shadow work, the more you get to see what doesn't serve you, by default, you get to understand what serves you better. So the better you understand what doesn't serve you and what are those dark, murky things, the better you have, control around it. Is if you hear your water pipe go like a goof, 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 and you don't know if it's the water pipe, if it's a tap, if it's the geyser, you don't actually know. And so you sit in your bed and you're like, oh my goodness. But when you get somebody to come out and have a look at it, or you take a course in, I don't know, whatever you call water stuff, plumbing, and you get to understand what's going on. Then you get to realize, well, maybe your geyser is not going to burst. Maybe there's just some air in your pipe from the last time the water was cut off or something like that. And then you get peace of mind. So in that same way, the better you understand those darker sides of yours, or the non-serving sides, you actually give yourself opportunities to choose better and higher serving for yourself. So you're basically doing yourself a massive favor. And your life gets better, and you feel better, and you sleep better. You can lose weight probably for a lot of people sometimes.
Yeah.
Your skin can get better. There could be a lot of benefits to that.
Yeah, it's a 180. Any kind of inner work, if you invest in you, it's that law of cause and effect. Whatever you like put out there, now the focus is all about you, and it's self-love, and you invest there, you're going to get it back 1,000-fold. That's how it works. Thank you. Yeah, we needed to hear that last little bit. I love that story. See, practical. It just makes sense. You make it easier. Thank you. I'm excited to see what episode 2 is going to be like for us. That's where we're going to delve into more of the action. I'm sure of it. Like I've seen you now and how you operate. So I'm very excited. We'll see you again next week, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much.
Have a beautiful evening. It's a pleasure. Goodbye.